The fear and the encounter. Rena sat inside the quiet shuttle, staring at the blue and green planet below. Her hands were tight on the straps across her chest, even though the landing was smooth. Her heart beat fast. Every story she had ever heard about humans echoed in her mind. The old warnings from her mother, the whispers in the academy, the recordings shown in training halls. They all said the same thing: never trust a human male. They said human males looked calm on the outside, but once they chose a mate, they turned into monsters. They growled, they took control, they devoured their partners in strange private rituals. Their emotions were dangerous, their minds unstable. It was said they were built for violence and ruled by hunger. The stories were clear, but none of that mattered now. Rena had been chosen by the council to study the humans directly. She was the youngest field observer in her class. Her mind was sharp, her loyalty strong, so she accepted the mission with pride, even though her skin prickled with fear. As the shuttle doors opened, she stepped out into the human colony. She had expected smoke and weapons and shouting. Instead, she was greeted by fresh air, light wind, and a small quiet building made of stone and glass. Tall figure walked toward her slowly. No armor, no weapons, just a light gray jacket and brown boots. His hair was short and dark, his face calm. His name, according to the mission file, was Tom. He was a builder and a systems engineer, someone who made structures strong and fixed what was broken. Rena's breath caught in her throat as he approached. Her translator implant picked up his voice. "Welcome," he said softly. "I'm here to guide you. You must be Rena, right?" She nodded once, keeping her hands still at her sides. Her people believed sudden movement could trigger a human male's aggression. She studied his eyes, clear and soft, not wild like she expected. "I prepared a small guest room for you if you'd like to rest first," he said, "or I can show you around." Rena tilted her head, trying to understand the trick. Was this how it started? The slow kindness, the gentle words before the attack. "I will observe you," she said formally, and kept her eyes on his hands, which were open and empty. Tom gave a quiet smile. "Sure, observe all you want. Just let me know if you need anything." He led her to a nearby structure. The walls were painted in calming colors, the furniture simple and soft. Nothing sharp, nothing loud. Rena stayed silent, watching every move he made over the next few days. Rena followed him everywhere. He worked long hours but never complained. He helped another human fix a broken water system. He carried a heavy load for a tired old woman, and even gave food to a small animal with injured legs. She recorded everything. Every word, every action. Her notes were full, but her confusion grew. Humans were supposed to be selfish and brutal, but Tom shared what he had. He listened when people spoke. He even laughed with children in a way that made her chest feel strange. At night he would offer her warm drinks, not the poison she had been warned about, just tea, sometimes with honey. It smelled sweet and calming. He asked questions about her planet, her people, and her name, but never pushed for answers. He waited. If she stayed silent, he respected her space. Her fears still. Rena could not sleep easily. Her eyes stayed open most nights. One time she caught him humming a soft tune while working on a broken solar panel. She tilted her head again, trying to find the threat in it, but there was none. It was just sound. It was just peace. On the fifth day, something unexpected happened. A human colonist stumbled into their work area, clearly drunk. His voice was loud and angry, and his steps unsteady. He pushed a crate off the table and shouted at Tom. Rena's heart froze. This is it, she thought. The human male will show his true nature now. But Tom didn't raise his voice. He didn't attack. He stood calmly, placed his hand gently on the man's shoulder, and said, "You need to go home and rest. Come on, I'll walk you back." The angry man grumbled, but followed Tom quietly without further trouble. Rena blinked slowly, unsure of what she had just seen. Later that evening, as the sky turned orange, Rena sat alone on a hill overlooking the colony. Tom walked up quietly and sat a few feet away. "I've been quiet lately," he said. "Are you all right?" She looked at him for a long moment, then finally spoke. "Why are you pretending to be kind?" she asked. "Isn't this the part where You reveal what you are. Tom looked confused. What do you mean you're a human male? She said firmly. You don't hide it well. My people believe you devour those you choose. He blinked slowly, then covered his mouth to hide a laugh. Wait, is that really what your people believe? She narrowed her eyes. Is it not true? Oh, he said gently. It's not true at all. We don't devour anyone. We build families. We protect those we care about. We try to love, not harm. Rena stared at him, unsure what to say. Her training had no guide for this response. He smiled again, not mocking, just kinda. Not here to hurt you, Rena. I just want to help you see what humans are really like. She looked down at the soft flower in her hand, a gift from her own planet. It glowed gently in the evening light, a symbol of peace, a symbol of trust. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe the stories were wrong, but how could so many generations be mistaken? She didn't know the answer yet, but for the first time she wanted to find out. Observation turns to curiosity. Rena stood in the middle of the garden outside the human quarters. The sky above her was a pale color with faint lines of clouds moving slowly. The air smelled fresh and warm, unlike the cold metallic scent of her own planet. Flowers grew from the ground in strange shapes, their colors soft and gentle. She leaned forward to study one. A bee-like creature flew past her ear, and she froze, but it only hovered near the flower and flew away. Again behind her came the sound of footsteps. Steady and slow, she turned and saw Tom carrying a metal box filled with tools. He nodded at her once as he walked past, focused on his task. She had followed him all morning, silently. He worked with others, helped repair broken light poles, and spoke to an older human who had trouble hearing. He never raised his voice, never moved with force. It confused her. According to her learning, humans used threats to lead others, but she had seen Tom fix more problems by listening than by shouting. Later, he sat under a shade tree and opened a small box. Inside were food items neatly packed. He held one out toward her without speaking. She looked at it carefully and scanned for harmful material. The data showed nothing dangerous. Still she hesitated. Tom smiled gently. No pressure, he said. Just thought you might be hungry. She took it slowly and held it in both hands. Her fingers trembled a little, but she placed it near her mouth and took a small bite. The taste was strange but soft, a mix of salt and something sweet. He watched her for a moment, then looked away to give her space. That afternoon, he showed her how a cooling system worked. His hands moved with calm speed as he explained the parts and their roles. Rena listened, quietly trying to focus. But a question had begun forming inside her mind. Why are you really kind? She asked suddenly. Tom blinked and set the tool down. I don't know if kind is the right word, he said. I just do what feels right. Her eyes narrowed, but it goes against the records. The stories your species is known for aggression. He looked at her with a strange expression. You think all humans are the same? She paused, then shook her head slowly. I think all males are the same. That's a problem. Then he said, not angry, not defensive, just honest. For a long time neither of them spoke. The wind moved through the trees nearby, and a few leaves fell gently to the ground. That night Rena stood outside her room watching the stars. The colony was quiet. The lights around the building glowed softly. Her mind felt full and heavy. She remembered a training hall back on her homeworld, where they showed footage of humans from past wars. Soldiers marching, fire in the sky, explosions and screams. They told her this was the human heart, but what if that was only one part? What if something else had grown in them since in the morning? Tom was already up working on the broken wall near the supply building. A small creature with silver fur had crawled inside the wires and caused damage. He gently lifted it out and set it free rather than harming it. Rena watched this with surprise and some small warmth in her chest. Why did you let it go? She asked. It damaged your tools. Tom wiped his hands. Because it didn't mean harm, it was just scared. She stared at him. You treat weaker beings with care. He nodded. I try to. We all get scared sometimes. Rena turned away before he could see the look in her eyes. Later, he took her to a small greenhouse full of human plants. Rena touched the glass and looked at the green life inside, growing slowly in rows. They looked fragile but strong at the same time, explained. How they grew each one, how much water and light they needed. He spoke with care and respect for even the smallest leaf. Your world must be very different, he said, gently. Yes, Rena replied, our food does not grow like this. We synthesize most of it. Do you like it here, he asked after a moment. I do not know yet, she said. I expected fear, I expected pain. And what do you feel now, he asked, confusion. She answered. He gave a short laugh. Well, that's a good start, better than fear. That evening Rena sat alone watching the sun disappear behind the hills. The sky changed color slowly from gold to red to purple. The stars began to show one by one. She opened her recorder and spoke quietly. Day 7 subject. Tom continues to show no signs of violent behavior. He assists others, speaks with calm tone, and avoids conflict. I have not witnessed aggression, even when provoked. I am beginning to question the records provided by the council. She paused, then added, subject displays strange emotional responses. He smiles often, sometimes laughs. He speaks of fairness and care as if they are natural. She looked out at the sky again. I have never felt this unsure of what is true. Just then, she heard the soft steps of Tom approaching. He held 2 small cups in his hands. One was offered to her. She took it and smelled the warm liquid. It was tea again, with a scent she had come to recognize. He sat beside her but left enough space to show he did not intend harm. You know, he said, I used to be afraid of your people, too. She turned to him. You feared us, not in the way you might think, he said. I thought you saw us as animals. I thought you would never want to talk. Never want peace. Rena stared at her cup. Why did you agree to be part of this mission? Then because someone has to try, he said. If we don't talk, we stay afraid. She looked at him, then looked away. Her hands were warm around the cup, her mind even warmer. Fear was still there, buried deep, but something else had begun to grow beside it. Not trust, not yet, but something close. She would keep watching, keep recording, but part of her no longer wanted to find a monster. Part of her wanted the stories to be wrong, and maybe, just maybe, they were emotional shift and revelation. The days passed slower now, but Rena no longer counted them in fear. She still kept her recordings, still sent her reports, but the tone in her voice had changed. Something inside her was shifting, and she could not stop it. Even if she tried, Tom had become a mystery that pulled her in deeper every time he spoke. She watched how he moved, not with dominance, but with purpose, not with threat, but with quiet strength. He carried metal and wires, but also picked up injured birds and placed them gently on a blanket. His voice had many layers, not just sound, but warmth behind every word. Rena had never seen her own people show affection the way humans did. One afternoon she saw a human couple holding hands by the walkway, just walking slowly, as if the world around them was not rushing forward. Their fingers stayed connected, and they smiled without speaking. She stared for a long time, and Tom noticed. That's called comfort, he said. When he saw her watching, sometimes we just want to feel someone is close. Rena did not reply right away. Her mind was busy pulling apart everything she thought she knew. Later that same day, Tom found her standing outside near the growing trees. Her hands were resting at her sides, and her shoulders looked heavy. He walked up and said nothing. He waited for her to speak. You are not what I expected, she said softly. He raised an eyebrow. What did you expect? I expected teeth, she said. I expected hunger. You were supposed to choose me as a mate, and then devour me slowly while pretending it was love. Tom blinked, then laughed once, but quickly stopped when he saw she was serious. That's what they taught you, yes, she replied, and her voice was steady. He sat down near her, but kept a careful distance. I don't know what to say. That sounds awful. She looked up at the sky, and the clouds seemed slower today. Everything felt slower. I thought if I stayed too long you would change, that the kindness was a trap, that any moment you would strike. He nodded quietly. I guess I can't blame you. If I had heard the same things, I might think like that. She turned toward him, her eyes sharp like glass but full of questions. Then what do human males want? What do they do when they find someone they care about? Tom looked down at his hands for a moment, then answered slowly. We try to protect. We try to understand. We try to stay close if the other person wants us there. We don't always get it right. But we try. Rena's voice was low, and if she doesn't want you near, then we walk away, he said. No force, no harm. That doesn't sound like what I was trained to believe. Maybe the training is old, he said. Maybe the people who made it were afraid too. That evening, Rena brought out a small crystal case from her room. It was thin and curved with soft light inside. She opened it and revealed a glowing flower with soft blue petals. Its glow pulsed like a heartbeat. She handed it to Tom. This grows only on my world, she said. We offer it only once in our lives. It is not love. It is not surrender. It is trust. Tom took it with both hands and held it carefully as if it could shatter from breath. Thank you, he said, and his voice sounded different, almost like it had weight. The next morning, everything changed. A sharp voice came through Rena's comm. Her people had sent a message, urgent and full of warning. You have stayed too long, the voice said. You have shared too much. Return at once. The humans are dangerous. Do not be fooled. Rena's hand trembled as she listened. Her heart felt pulled in two directions. She walked outside and found Tom fixing a water pipe. His shirt had dirt on it. His face was calm as always. I have to leave, she said. He looked up surprised. Why? My people think I've been compromised. They think you're pretending to be good. They believe you'll harm me if I stay longer. Tom stood slowly, then wiped his hands. And what do you believe? Rena looked at the ground, then raised her eyes to Hisi. Don't know anymore. That's okay, he said. I just hope you do what feels right to you, not to anyone else. She left without saying goodbye. Her shuttle rose into the air before the sun fully climbed over the hills. Her chest felt heavy. Her fingers stayed tight in her lap the whole flight, but something was wrong on the return path. Her ship caught a storm. The navigation system glitched and power flickered. She tried to call for help, but the signal cracked before she could react. She saw another ship rising from the colony. It was small and not built for storm travel, but it flew straight toward her vessel. She knew it was Tommy. Had followed her into danger through the thick clouds and bright flashes of light. She saw his ship struggling, but steady. He pushed close and activated his beacon, guiding her shuttle down toward a safe canyon. Then silence. His ship did not follow. Her heart slammed in her chest. She turned the shuttle back against every rule, against every order. She searched through the wind and cloud until she found his craft lodged against a hill. He was alive but hurt. She pulled him into her ship and they returned to the colony. She did not ask permission. She did not wait for orders. She placed him in the care center and sent one final message to her home. Your stories were wrong. I have seen the truth. Human males do not devour. They protect, they feel, they risk their lives for others. She looked at Tom as he rested covered in bandages but breathing. He came for me, she whispered. When I had already left. That is not hunger. That is not danger. That is something else. That is something worth staying for. Crisis and decision. Sky over the colony turned dark in the afternoon. Clouds gathered like heavy thoughts above Rena's head. She stood outside the care center where Tom rested inside. The machines beside him beeped gently. His skin was bruised, and a small bandage crossed his forehead. He had not woken up since the emergency landing. Rena watched the sky, but her mind was far from it. Her communicator buzzed again. A new message from the High Council came through. They had seen her last report and her act of defiance. They were not pleased. You are no longer acting within the limits of observation. Return immediately, or face permanent exile from the scientific class. The message was cold and final. Rena lowered the communicator and stared at her own reflection in the dark glass window. She did not see a scientist now. She did not see a perfect daughter or a perfect citizen. She saw someone changed. Someone who had begun to understand something that could not be written in reports. Tom had saved her, and he had done it without expecting anything in return. No glory, no reward, just care. She turned and walked inside. The care center was quiet, and the walls hummed with soft energy. Tom's chest moved up and down slowly with each breath. His hands were still marked by the controls of the storm-ridden shuttle. She sat beside him and placed the glowing flower. She had given him earlier near his pillow. Its light flickered softly like a small memory. The door opened behind her, and a human officer stepped in. "They say your people want you back," he said quietly. Rena nodded. "Are you going?" She looked at Tom again, then back at the officer. "I don't know." The officer gave a short nod, then left without another word. She sat there for a long time, watching the light move across the floor as the sun tried to return through the clouds, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her thoughts heavy like stone. Later that night, Tom opened his eyes slowly. He looked around, then saw her sitting near him. "You stayed?" he whispered. "Yes," she replied. "You shouldn't have," he said. "It was dangerous. Was flying into a storm to save someone who left without saying goodbye," she replied. He smiled weakly. "Guess we're both bad at leaving." She leaned back in the chair and closed her eyes for a moment. "They want me to return," she said. "I've broken every rule of my mission." He looked at her for a long time, then spoke slowly. "Do you want to go?" She didn't answer right away. Then she shook her head. "I don't know who I'd be if I went back now. I'm not the same person who came here." He reached out and gently touched her hand. His fingers were warm, even though his body was still healing. "Then stay for now," he said. "Stay until you're sure." Next morning the sky was clear again, but the tension was rising. Rena received another message from her people. This one was not just a warning. It was a threat. "If you do not return, we will consider your contact with the humans a breach of peace. We cannot protect you." She deleted the message without reading it twice. That afternoon Rena walked through the colony with Tom by her side. His steps were slower now, but he refused to rest. She watched as humans greeted him with kindness. Some asked if he was feeling better. Others simply nodded in respect. She realized that trust among humans was not a silent agreement. It was built piece by piece, through action not promise, through time not force. The central hall, a meeting was held. A few leaders from both sides had agreed to hear Rena's full report. It was risky, but she had asked for it. When the room filled with quiet voices, she stepped forward and looked at each face carefully. Some were human. Some were from her own people who had come on a silent ship to retrieve her. She held the glowing flower in her hands and began to speak. "I was trained to fear human males. I was told they were creatures of instinct and hunger. I was told they take and never give, but I was wrong." Her voice was steady, though her heart raced. "I have lived among them. I have watched and listened. I have followed one man from morning to night, waiting for the moment he would reveal the truth. I expected violence. I expected control. Instead, I found care. I found gentleness. I found someone willing to risk his life for someone who was ready to leave him behind." She looked at the faces. "Again, my people will say I am blind, that I have fallen under influence, that I have betrayed logic. But logic cannot explain why someone would fly into a storm for someone they barely knew. Logic cannot explain the warmth of being seen, not as a subject, but as a person." One of the council members stood up slowly and spoke. "Do you reject your mission?" Rena took a deep breath. "No, I completed it, just not the way you expected." The hall was quiet for a long time. Then someone clapped, a slow, quiet clap that came from a human sitting in the back. Others followed soon, and the room filled with a calm kind of approval. Her people did not clap. Their faces remained unreadable. But they did not take her by force. They simply left and made their decision clear. By their silence, Rena turned to Tom outside the hall and smiled softly. "I think they'll erase my name from the records," she said. "We'll write you a new one here," he said with a small grin. She looked up at the stars above. "I used to think humans were dangerous, and now," he asked. "Now I think danger has many shapes," she said. "But so does safety. And sometimes they look the same until you feel the difference." They walked back toward the colony lights side by side. Her steps were lighter now, her path clearer. She had made her choice, and the story was no longer someone else's, it was hers. Truth wins. Fear dies. The morning began with golden light touching the quiet hills around the colony. The air was cool and fresh, the sky clear for the first time in weeks. Rena stood at the edge of the crops, watching the wind move through the green rows like waves. She held her small recorder in one hand, but she did not speak into it anymore. There were no more reports to send, no more lies to repeat. Tom walked up beside her, still moving with care as his body healed. He looked stronger each day, and his smile had returned like sunlight after long rain. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. She kept her eyes on the fields. "I was wondering how many others still believe the same lies I once did." He nodded slowly. "Probably most of them. That means more will come," she said. "Some might not listen. Some might want to stop this piece before it starts. Then we show them the truth," he said with calm. "We keep showing them until they see." Rena looked at him carefully. His words were simple, but something in his tone made them feel heavy with meaning. They walked back to the colony where life had started to change. The humans had begun building new sections of housing, not just for themselves, but for visitors from her world. A few of her people had stayed behind, not as guards or spies, but as learners, curious ones asking questions, not giving orders. Rena met with them often. She answered what she could and let silence answer what she could not. She and Tom were now part of something larger, something. No one had planned a story that had begun with fear, but now moved with hope. At the edge of the colony, a group of children played with a device that created floating shapes in the air. Rena stopped to watch. One of the children handed her a small crystal shaped like a heart. She held it between her fingers, feeling the warmth from their tiny hands. One of the elders approached her later in the day, a tall woman with quiet eyes. "You caused quite a storm back home," the elder said. "I know," Rena replied. "Some call you lost," the woman said. "Others call you brave. Which one are you?" "I think I am someone who stopped lying to herself," Rena answered. The woman gave a soft nod and walked away. That night, the colony held a small gathering around the central fire. People brought food, told stories, and shared laughter. Music played not from speakers, but from human hands strumming strings and tapping rhythms. Rena sat near Tom, her body relaxed, her mind still alert, but no longer full of fear. A human child climbed into her lap without asking and handed her a flower made from folded paper. It was imperfect and wrinkled, but she accepted it as if it were gold. She looked around and saw the faces glowing in firelight, so different from her own kind, yet now familiar. When she first arrived, she believed human males were dangerous because they had emotions too strong to control. She believed they would harm what they cared about because that was what she had been told. But Tom had shown her something else. He had shown her that love without respect is not love at all. He had shown her that strength without kindness is just empty noise. He had shown her that real power does not need to shout or destroy it, simply stays even when everything else leaves. Rena stood and Coden walked to the center of the gathering. She held up the glowing flower from her home and the folded paper flower from the child. "Two things are different," she said. "One is made of light, one is made of hand, but both carry meaning. Both were given freely and both matter." She looked around the fire. "Fear taught me to protect myself from you, but fear never asked if it was right. I was wrong. I know that now." She turned to Tom and, "I thank you for not proving those lies true." The crowd was silent for a moment, then someone began to clap. Slowly the sound grew louder until the whole fire circle echoed with it. Tom smiled but said nothing. He reached out and took her hand, not to claim her, not to bind her, just to say, "I am here." Rena squeezed his hand gently. Later, when the stars took their place in the sky and the fire became embers, Rena sat beside Tom in quiet peace. "Do you miss your world?" he asked. "Sometimes," she said, "but not the way I used to." She rested her head against his shoulder. "Here I feel something I never felt there." "And what's that?" he asked. She closed her eyes and breathed deep. "I feel seen." Tom looked up at the stars and said, "That's all anyone wants, really." The night passed without alarms, without orders, without reports. Just quiet. Just peace and a new truth being born, one heart at a time. Rena no longer feared human males. She had lived beside one and had been changed forever. She had come expecting monsters and found something else. Perfection, not control, but choice, and in that choice she had found something worth everything. Something even her people had forgotten: hope. The end.